Hello everyone. Hello folks. Hello Marco. How are you? Ciao.
Good today.
Good to see you. It looks like we spoke to each other about the t-shirt, but it didn't happen. We swear. So thanks everyone for being here. I'm here today with Marco for the first international episode of Small Talk. Thank you for joining us, Marco, again. We've had you on many meetups and online events, but this is a new one, and we wanted to have a quick chat with you as well. So what is Small Talk exactly? We are doing a new live series, a new series of events in live streaming, where we talk with our trainers about the workshops, really. So we'll get a sneak peek of what we can expect in the online classroom. Of course, you are more than welcome to ask questions during this live event, and the YouTube chat is already active. I can see already Dimitri. Dylan, long time no see. Good to have you here. And of course, we'll be talking with Marco. I have some questions ready, and we'll be reading yours as well. So, Marco, in about 2 weeks, we're doing the third edition of your Domain Models in Practice, DDD, CQRS, and Event Sourcing workshop. We were meant to do this in Milan, I remember, then we know what happened. We converted the workshop to the online event, and in 2 weeks, we're doing the third sold-out edition. So if you're interested in joining Marco for the workshop, we have another one coming in February 2022. So contributions are more than welcome today, so feel free to drop your questions. I see Wojtek, Rafal, welcome everyone from wherever you are. Very good to have the possibility to still talk to all of you folks online. Enough from me. So Marco, of course, first things first, please introduce your workshop to us. So, Domain Models in Practice, Domain-Driven Design, CQRS, and Event Sourcing. What is this?
Yeah, so Domain Models in Practice, I chose this title because Domain-Driven Design, CQRS, and Event Sourcing sounds very long, and if you don't know what those mean exactly, then you don't really get what the workshop is all about. It's about figuring out the actual problems of your domain, modeling the problem structure, and then coming up with multiple solutions from the strategical part to the team structure, down to the architecture and even the code level. Because I've seen domain-driven design workshops in the past, I've had my own DDD workshops and also CQRS and event sourcing workshops, which is what I wanted to teach in the beginning. But then I realized they work best together. So putting all of these three different topics into one workshop, where it's all about the models of your domain, different solutions, different ways of solving problems from a social and architectural point of view, because in DDD most things are socio-technical anyway. So yeah, it's a workshop where we go from modeling with event storming over bounded context mapping, different team topologies, down to architectural decisions using CQRS and event sourcing where it applies, also learn when it not applies, looking at other architectural patterns like actor model and similar, and then going down to code level, implementing the models in object-oriented fashion. But we could also go into functional. That always depends on the group that we have. But we will discuss all of these options and more in the Domain Models in Practice workshop. So happy to see you there.
So be there indeed. If not this time, next time. Thanks, Marco, for the quick intro. It's a lot of things. It's a 5 half-day workshop. So of course, nothing that can be condensed in a 1-minute speech, but we'll dig a bit more into this today with you. And there's plenty of resources online, and at the end of the live, Marco will be suggesting some of them as well, so you have some homework for the weekend if you wish. So you said DDD is all about Socio-Technical, and one of my questions indeed was, how did you first learn about DDD? And so like the first time.
Yeah, thanks. So my first encounter was quite random. It was in 2010, and I was trying to solve problems in the company that I've been working for 7 years to that point. So we were building a complex system for the German healthcare system, and we tried agile project management. We tried different coding techniques, different architecture styles. But no matter what we tried, clean code and everything, and test-driven development, none of this really solved our problem because, and I didn't realize it then, but our problem was in not understanding the model in the head of the business people, of the domain experts. And a friend of mine said, hey, I'm going to London to the DDD exchange. There's this guy, Greg Young, he's talking about architecture patterns. So let's go there and learn about CQRS. And I was like, hey, that sounds cool. So yeah, we went there, and I went there for the architecture. But Eric Evans was also there talking about domain-driven design. And I think Alberto was speaker as well at that day. So I've met a lot of people, or I just listened to a lot of people talking about DDD, and they completely flipped the script around of how software should be built. So I was thinking technical problems, technical solutions, how to make technology better all the time. That was my main focus most of the time. And all of a sudden there are people who are standing, developers who say, yeah, it's not about code. That's not the reason why we do it. We do it to solve business problems, and this is how to think about it. And that completely blew my mind. And I think it took another 2 years or so for me to fully realize how to operate this, how to use this in practice. Without being just a dream, right? Just oh yeah, this would be nice, but not really feasible. So yeah, it was basically random. Meet a guy on stage, see, oh yeah, smart person, and then see, oh, there's a book out already, Domain-Driven Design by the same author, and like, yep, I'm going to buy that off the shelf immediately, and that kind of changed my life until today.
Wow, that's a nice story to hear. And the DDD Exchange is a conference where indeed you had the likes of Greg and Eric Evans as well, and also Alberto. We're going to talk about your meeting with Alberto later on. And indeed, one of the main points of DDD is, which stands for Domain-Driven Design, is have business people and the coders talk to each other, and it's all about communication. And as you said, the mind-blowing moment came when you realized about the socio-technical implications around it. So as DDD is getting more and more, let's call it, used. I know it's not the right word, but we hear it more and more often, of course, also thanks to events like the DDD Exchange by Skills Matter. Do you think is DDD right now living its moment of hype? Is it the right thing to say? Is it not yet? Not really?
I think it's over the hype already. And I think this is a good thing in this case. So there's a lot of methods, right, that hyped over time. There was TDD hyped at some point, and Agile hyped at some point, and DDD became very popular, I think, around 2012-13. This is where it really sparked. The widespread adoption still, there's a lot of room to adopt more, right? There's a lot of companies who've never heard of it. But I would say within the international software developer community, DDD is a household name already. And it feels hypey because it pops up everywhere, but I think that the DDD community itself is integrating it with other topics. So it's not like a hype where you say, oh, DDD is the next shiny thing that we use to solve all our problems. It's already integrated in, hey, if you do agile and domain-driven, where it applies, using heuristics to use it sensible, it just becomes another tool in your belt that you can use whenever it helps. And there's a lot of overlap between different management methods, right, and team topologies and complexity theory, Wardley mapping for strategy building and project management or product management. All of these things align very well with DDD, but also on the clean code front, on the test-driven front, all of those things also overlap with the tactical parts of domain-driven design. So if you look at the DDD Europe, the Kandinsky, the Explore DDD at the different conferences, the talks are not like 100% domain-driven design, what's in the book topics. That's a tiny percentage of all the talks. Most of it is actually cross-pollination from other fields, other ideas, because DDD is not, it's not an enclosed set. It's not a group of ideas that you use and then you do DDD, right, or you don't do DDD. It's an open set, right? It has a gravity well around understanding the structure of your company, of your domain, understanding the language that applies per context, what different mental models do we actually have, and how do we speak within those contexts, and how should the code look therefore. And this is basically the center of the ideas of DDD. And then a lot of architecture patterns, strategies, methods, methodologies, they all gravitate towards this idea, and this becomes one giant toolkit. So being domain-driven is not by the book, right? It's not if you read the blue book, then you are domain-driven. But being domain-driven is a mindset, and it fits very well. And I don't think that it's hyping. I think it became a household staple item that everybody or many people already have and use. But yeah, it's still, adoption is still lacking. So this is why we're here, to teach more and talk more about DDD to further the adoption.
Absolutely. It's always a matter of whether it's hyping, in one's bubble or in the outside world, as we might want to refer to it. So we have first question from Rafael. Thanks, Rafael. I'll pop it up here on the screen. What kind of tools do you use for modeling?
Oh, that's a good question. So yeah, this answer goes two-part, right? There's the technological tools you're using, and then there's the methods I'm using. So let's start with the methods first. My go-to tool for that is Event Storming by Alberto Brandolini, hence my fan shirt here. But yeah, that's the lowest entry barrier. It's very easy to start, and you can get people hooked by talking about models from a big picture overview over a whole domain to process model event storming down to software design level even. So it's a very versatile tool with a low entry barrier, and that makes it easy as a go-to to start and to explore almost any problem, any complex problem. Other tools I'm using when I'm building software models, so when I already understand the domain as a whole and I'm trying to build more concrete models, is Domain Storytelling by Henning Schwender and Stefan Hofer. And the book is out, by the way. I've seen that last week, so cool for that. But yeah, Domain Storytelling helps a lot if it's about the tactical patterns and the design. And those are my main go-to methods. Then for the socio-technical or the socio-architectural part, I'm using bounded context mapping and the bounded context canvas by Nick Tune. And yeah, this will also be in the reading links I'm going to provide at the end. But yeah, those are tools that I use most, from model to strategy to tactics. And technology-wise, what I use is basically Miro boards for the virtual sticky notes, or physical sticky notes if I actually work in a team that is co-located. But the pandemic shifted almost everything to virtual. But yeah, though my favorite would be in person, because nothing replaces the emotional connection you have to people when you talk in person. A lot of body language gets lost otherwise. But the virtual sessions, of course, have other benefits. So Miro boards or mural boards are the ones I use. And from there, you can easily link to any wiki. And my favorite content management system is Notion, but also the thing from Atlassian, Confluence. It's very feasible. So putting some screenshots, some drawings, and some stories in there, and linking to a Miro board where you have the flexible sticky notes and linking back to the content, that works very well for me. I hope that answers your questions. And if not, please feel free to add another.
Absolutely. Thanks, Marco, and thanks, Rafa, for the question. If needed, please add some more points. Just wanted to point out, we went as event organizers from living, within ordering stacks of sticky notes to living in StreamYard, Zoom, and Miro. So the physical products, yeah, they're still there. I should have some as well. Yeah. Not here, but I have a Miro board open. So this has changed, but of course, the value and the usefulness of the techniques remain the same. Talking about this, let's go back to the workshop for a second. I'll read Dimitri's questions in a second. Mm-hmm. So we said it's going to be 5 half days of workshop that we're doing together. Of course, it's not going to be reading slides and sitting there and listening. There's going to be, of course, some theory, but then a lot of practice. So yeah, how are we going to balance these two important aspects?
Yeah, so when I started this workshop, it was kind of half-half, right? We did a lot of theory up front and then practice for half a day or so afterwards. And then after learning about the brain-friendly training methods from training from the back of the room, I completely shifted the workshop over time. And now there is a little piece of theory up front to get a common understanding of the content, the topic, the language we're using. So that's 1 or 2 hours of basically looking at a screen, listening to me talk. And after that, it's 4.8 days of collaborative exploration of the topic. So it's practice and theory are combined all the time. There's always a few minutes of some theory, going directly into practice, figuring out how stuff works, getting to questions, and then looking at some examples. And then from there, learning more, getting into the next topic. And this will be a continuous learning journey that is in Miro, and also in the last 1 or 2 days, even in code with screen share and ensemble programming, where multiple people are coding together in the same code base, creating the results of what we've modeled in the first part of the workshop. So it will be an exploratory workshop where you actually experience modeling a whole domain, going through all the motions and exercises. There will be a lot of time for questions and answers and what ifs. So it's not just a push you through a learning journey quickly. But yeah, the goal is in the end to actually build something that you can take away and have a piece of software that you yourself write. So it's a mix of theory praxis the whole time.
Excellent. One very important point for us as Avans Coperta when crafting a workshop with our trainers is give something to participants that they can, start using, if not straight away the day after, but soon after. And it's very good that you mentioned this. The questions from Dimitri kind of links to one point that now came up to my mind, which is you mentioned coding. So what language are we going to use during the workshop?
Oh, that's not determined by me. That is your favorite language. So as long as there are more than 2 people, we usually can just figure out, okay, what language do people have in common in a group? And then we'll split into groups for specific languages. Usually we have C# and Java around. There's usually some JavaScript people or someone who's feasible in Python. But I've seen also Haskell programmers joining. And as long as there's at least 2 people per programming language, we're gonna code in that. It never happened that anyone wrote the language that nobody else understood, right? But even if that would happen, then we can join up, because it's not super important to be very flexible or very, very knowledgeable in a certain programming language. It's about adopting the patterns from domain-driven design. So if you're not able to type C#, but you're able to read what we're writing and you can follow along, that's all you need to get the learning out of it, because we will discuss tactics and how to build things in the group, and then one person makes it compile in the specific language. But that's very flexible. So pick whatever programming language you like and whatever compiler you like, and we will build groups anyway where one person will do the work and the rest will do the thinking and talking, which is also work, but you know what I mean.
Absolutely, in pure mob programming fashion. Now, you kind of already answered, but I want to give Dimitri the full answer if possible. So Dimitri said, I wanted to use C# for coding, not proficient. Would it work for me? What tools to pre-install?
Yeah. So exactly what I just said. Just install your favorite IDE, whatever you like, Visual Studio Code or Visual Studio or whatever else you want to code C# in. And we don't need anything except being able to compile and run a console application or a unit test. So if you want to use unit testing, please install your favorite testing library. And again, if you will be the driver, if you will be the person doing the coding, then you should be, of course, proficient enough to just do that. And if not, if someone else does the C#, I can do C#, so I'm happy to assist there. If someone can do C#, they can do the coding while we together think about a solution. So no worries.
Super cool. So yeah, we are covered on that, Dimitri. Thanks, Marco. Now, again, more in general, one thing that can happen sometimes is, with new things, we know that it is nothing new, but in some environment can be. It's basically, it's not about convincing others to use DDD, but what's the biggest argument, let's say, against DDD that you've heard?
Yeah, so I've seen a lot of resistance against DDD from 2 different angles, so there is not one biggest argument. I think there's 2 major plots against domain-driven design adoption. And they have the root in the same cause. But one is when domain-driven design comes from the programmers, when they hear about DDD and now they want to do it, but the company structure, the middle management, and the hierarchy you have built works differently. You have your business people, then you have your architects, and they tell the developers what to build. If you have a structure like that, it becomes really hard because you're trying to bring an idea that is a whole company cultural approach where the way you model together as a group completely changes and has to be more collaborative. And you try to enforce that against a structure that says, no, that's not your job. So this is one of the biggest resistances. And that's not per se against DDD as a topic, but against what it implies for company culture. And still, it's valuable to do guerrilla tactics, right? Start from small, use whatever you can from DDD, and whenever you have the psychological safety or the organizational safety to do experiments with modeling, then introduce more ideas. But yeah, that's one of the major pain points. We're going to address some of those and talk about heuristics, how to even then apply most of the value that you can get out of it. But there will be, of course, pitfalls. You can't just change people because you have a good method. Well, you think you have a good method. That's always subjective. And the other resistance is the other way around. When the product people say, hey, we need to collaboratively model this and talk about socio-technical architecture, oftentimes you find developers who have been very safely building databases and APIs and are very proficient in a certain technology for the last 15 years, and they don't want to change. They don't want to talk about business first. They don't care about the business that much. I mean, they care about the business operating in general, but they don't want to learn about the intricate complexities and details of the domain model. They just want to be told what to code and then build a great code because that's their expertise. And that needs a very different way of dealing with it, because in the end, we do not provide software, we provide business solutions, right? So we need to understand the problem well and then have multiple proposed solutions with trade-offs that we can really discuss to figure out which one to actually build. And getting programmers into that mindset without forcing them to be in that mindset is the second hard part. So that's both directions. There's of course a lot of other things that could go or wrong or happen, but those are the main pain points, I think.
Yeah, that makes sense, and of course it's something that in Advanced Capital we've heard as well. Good to know, they're going to be addressed during the workshop, and we might find ways, to know how to deal with them a bit better, really. So we have a nice question from Dylan. Thanks, Dylan. Going back a bit to basically how to do online trainings and being so different from being in the classroom, how do you get people's attention, and especially the one sitting in silence and with cameras on? So first thing I'd like to say is Advanced Capital, we always encourage folks to have it on because that's the way we can see each other and create a bit better connection. But sometimes it's not enough. So we want to hear Marco's opinion on this.
Yeah, I mean, hi, Dylan. That's actually a really good point, and that's something I've been struggling with when people don't want to, because there's a clash of values in my own heart. I want to provide psychological safety, so if people don't feel safe to open up their camera, if they want to learn in silence, that's a total right? I don't want to force anyone to turn on the camera. On the other hand, if people just don't turn it on because they're used to it or they still don't feel that safe, that's where I use some games at the beginning. So we will start with building your own business card where you have a picture on and a name, and then we build a few domains, we build a few models where we have highly collaborative sessions where not the whole group as a whole talks to each other, but we split into smaller groups. So if you are in a breakout room with 2 or 3 different people, or maybe 4, it becomes a personal conversation. And then those smaller groups, after having personal conversations, extend to the bigger group again. And as Enrico said, we encourage the whole time, please let the camera on, because imagine we would be standing in a room, right? It's about actually engaging with the group around you. And still, though, people get the right to feel safe. And if you don't want to turn your camera on for whatever reason, you don't have to. So I'd like to know as well how to encourage more, but those are the things I try, and in most of the cases it works. But there's always one or the other person who doesn't want to turn on the camera, and that's also okay and fine.
Yeah, as Dylan says, the trade-off between participation and respecting people's desire to be silent, invisible is tough, indeed. You did have this situation, and we will have them in the classroom as well, like in real life, as we say. Yeah. But probably with face contact and everything, you kind of manage to involve people a bit more.
Yeah, sorry to jump in again, but this is very different, I think, from in-company trainings than in personal or in public trainings. In public trainings, it's usually almost everybody has a camera on because people are there on their own free will. They want to learn, and it's a collaboration workshop where you learn to model together, to have a meaningful discussion, to learn through collaboration and model better. So that usually works. I very rarely have people who don't want to turn on the camera for the whole time. In companies, it totally depends on the company culture. Some companies are just not used to doing it, or in some companies there is not the safety, and then I have not found any trick to make people turn on the camera. And even if you have like 5 people who do it and 20 who don't, at some point those 5 will be discouraged and also turn off their camera, and then you talk to a black wall, which is no fun at all. But yeah, that's for another time and a topic I really like to discuss in person one day.
With cameras on, of course.
Sure.
Okay, thanks, Dylan, and thanks for the question so far. Right, so we are approaching the end. I did mention we were going to briefly talk about Alberto, who we say hello to. So it's just a piece of curiosity. When did you first meet Alberto?
So yeah, again, this is a two-parter, right? Very first time I met him was on stage. I mean, I didn't meet him, I saw him. He was on stage at the DDD Exchange, but he was weird to me. So there were the other people, right? Eric Evans talking about domain-driven design, blowing my mind. There was Udi Dahan and Greg Young talking about architecture, CQRS and event sourcing. And those things really connected with me. And Alberto was talking something about, I don't know, modeling, communication, and that felt kind of weird. So I saw him. I thought, nice guy, really, really extroverted like me, but I couldn't connect with the topic. And I think 2 or 3 years later, 2013 at the Build Stuff, or 2014, or the first Build Stuff conference, we went there in Vilnius and talked about this event storming or model stuff. Oh, wait, sorry. I totally forgot. Implementing DDD Tour, that came before in 2013. So I met him at DDD Tour again, and he was introducing model storming. It wasn't called event storming back then. He was experimenting with sticky notes and modeling semantically. And it totally clicked with me in that moment. I was like, oh my God, let me be the fake product owner of our little domain here, making a fantasy online shop selling magical items or whatever. And then having a room full of 70 people who are programmers, developers, architects. We modeled this domain using this method. And it was so much fun. And so many ideas came up and clicked, and the communication was really great. And then next year at the Build Stuff conference, we gave an event storming workshop together. So assisting from day number one, fanboy from day number one, and this method stuck with me until today. Still evolving, of course, it's always changing, but yeah, from the moment we started, or he invented this method, I was totally hooked with, hey, keep it simple, use sticky notes and clear communication, and then bring out the model. Yeah.
Nice. And I remember we also have a picture of it in the blog post we did together a few years ago. So I'll link that on YouTube for future reference. I'll read another one from Dylan, going back to the online training bit. So you find we're jumping from one thing to the other, but that's the beauty of doing it live. Do you find as a trainer that people who paid for their own ticket tend to be more involved?
It depends. On average, yes, people who came and paid for their own ticket seem to be more engaged because they came on their own free will. But this is an in general tendency. It's not like a heartfelt, I don't have data for that to support that. And I've seen people from companies where the company owners say, hey, I'm sending 5 people to your public workshop even. And they were super engaged because they were begging their boss to come. And the boss is paying, but still they are super engaged. So it's a kind of, it depends. I never actually tracked that information, but yeah, that's my gut feeling. Can only give you my gut feeling here.
Yeah. Seems a bit more towards the paying on their own, more engaged, but again, no data yet. We'll see what comes out of it. So we are reaching the end of it, and we want to ask you. I want to ask you about. We've spoken about DDD. Resistance to DDD, when it's best to use it, etc. How was it born, kind of thing. One good case study, like briefly, I know you would have millions of stories of how DDD was used and was successful. If you want to talk about one or a few cases where so this change.
Yeah, I will not give you one case study because one case study is kind of boring. The whole idea of DDD is it shines in its complexity, right? So I've been modeling with an American coffee brand that almost everybody knows, and also with a music brand from Norway, and with insurance companies and healthcare companies, and I don't know, 100 different domains or so. And each time there is different things that really shine with DDD. And the things that in most cases work really well is getting the business people or the domain experts and the developers together in a room to really understand the problem spaces. So the thing that I worked on the most is the last 14 years for a healthcare system in Germany, which is a case study that I can talk about in so much detail, it would explode the whole year. But figuring out that we had a legacy system that is, 300,000 lines of domain code, which is all spaghetti code and completely unmaintainable, and not being able to build a new one because after 2 or 3 tries of rewriting, realizing you're only adding new legacy systems because you never finish before the old one, before the new one is ready. And using domain-driven design to model the domain, to understand the business side of things, and then extracting small parts where you can really provide value by building something new, but still connecting it to the old system. And from there, growing a service landscape, basically, where you have separated values with respective experts and customer groups and even developer expertise that are focused on the domain and not on the technology anymore. That was like a completely eye-opener. But again, that's the thing where I was personally involved most of the time as an ongoing case study. But yeah, the same ideas, they applied with all the other domains. So people have been modeling and building software and architecture, and the struggle always came from the misunderstandings within, hey, what are we actually trying to solve here? And so, yeah, I would like to have a lot of time to talk about all these case studies in detail. In the workshop, we have a little bit of time to talk about some of those, so I will bring some examples. But yeah, if you meet me at any conference in the future or at any open space, let's talk about case studies in detail, because a lot of things are NDA and not really for the public ear. So, yeah, that's where the real fun starts, right? When you have the complexities that are also with cheesy stories, and so yeah.
Good stuff. So we'll write a book about it one day, or not? With all the secrets.
Anonymously, yeah.
Anonymously. Good. Thanks, Marco, for all your insights about the workshop and your activity as trainer, modeler. Now, I wanted to leave our viewers and our friends online with some suggested readings and videos. So something they could start, if they don't know DDD, they want to know more. What would you suggest reading or watching?
Yeah, we've got this question in the DDD community so often over the last years that at some point we realized, hey, instead of just posting a blog post or sending a book at some point, let's curate a list of things that people should read, right? So when you go to virtualddd.com, that's the international DDD community having an open website where everybody can participate. We have video sessions there, like interview sessions or collaborative modeling every few weeks. And if you're new to it, you can join live next time. But if you want to see all the old sessions, there's a bunch of videos there about all the topics surrounding domain-driven design. And there's also a link on the website called Learning DDD Journey. It's in the menu, I think the first one or so. And if you go to the Learning DDD Journey, it guides you through different phases of, hey, you're a total beginner. This is what you could start reading and learning to get an easy entrance. And if you're already intermediate, here are some resources. So it's a curated list that still needs a bit more love, and we're going to add that in the rest of the year, but it's a really good start already. So virtualddd.com would be my go-to address. And there is a video session there from a few months ago called What Makes You a DDDer. So if you watch that one, it involves a lot of the people that have been involved with the DDD community for a long time, discussing what domain-driven design actually entails and what it doesn't. This is also where the idea of the open set came from that session. So I would highly recommend that. And the other resource would be github.com/DDDcrew or gitlab.com. I'm not sure, one of both. But DDD crew on GitLab or GitHub. That's people from the DDD community who build resources like the Bounded Context Canvas, Nick Tune, for example, and also event storming recipes. So you get articles with pictures that give you an easy entrance and also links to mirror boards that you could use and copy for your own usage. And both resources are free and happy to be used by everybody. So go there, learn, experiment with DDD, and take part in the community. Ask questions openly online. Happy to see you there.
Amazing, good stuff, Marco. Thanks for all the resources. There's a lot, to learn. So good that we have a list for that. I'll post that in the comment section of YouTube. We also have done, I think, 1 or 2 talks with Marco. One is coming up next month. And an interview as well, so I'll be posting them too. I don't know if I'll say that anyway. Next month, Kandi Didinsky, which is a conference Marco is organizing in Germany, is coming back after, was it 1 year stop last year?
Yep, we had 1 year stop.
Let's close off with Kandi Didinsky. What's new this year?
Yeah, so because of the pandemic, we thought about not doing it again because we didn't want to join the virtual sessions. There are so many virtual conferences already. It becomes redundant at some point. So we said, hey, let's limit it to 100 attendees. So 100 participants can join. We still have tickets. So go to kendididinsky.com with 3 Ds. And it's an open space this time. So we're not providing talks. There won't be closed rooms. We will have large areas where groups of up to 20 people or so can model together, discuss things together. And everybody who comes, every participant is part of building the agenda. So in the first half hour of the day, we'll talk about all the topics people want to discuss about, figuring out who has knowledge, who wants to learn, and what kind of session should it be. It could become a modeling session, a programming session, really just a talk if somebody wants to show slides. So it's totally open to the agenda building of the participants. And yeah, it's in Berlin, October 21st and 22nd. Hope to see you there. And that's it for me. Thanks for having me today.
Cool. Thanks, Marco. Thanks a lot. Thanks for everyone watching. I'll read this one from Dylan as it's public, so no problem, I guess. Did you sort out the whole program with the Kandididinsky name in the end?
Yes, we did. So that little anecdote is we had a company called Kandinsky, and that was a kind of a joke because in the original domain-driven design book by Eric Evans, there's a cover picture of a Kandinsky painting, right? The famous artist Kandinsky. And when Yannick and I, the two co-founders, we were in Cologne in a coffee called Kandinsky, we're like, oh, the Kandinsky coffee, man. We were talking about we should build a DDD conference in Germany and spread the love of domain-driven design, right? Because there's a lot of adoption still missing. And then, but how do we call it? And then, oh my God! And then we called it Kandinsky, but with 3 Ds as the little joke in the name. And all of a sudden, there was a company that was already called Kandinsky making advertisement articles, and they sued us and said, "Hey, please pay us a lot of money because you're using our name." And we're like, oh. Yeah, legal issues, what to do about it. So we figured, let's figure out a new name, let's rename ourselves. And so at some point we're like, no, we love the name. We'll just pay a certain amount of money and that's fine. We didn't want to go to anything like KDDD Conf or whatever. Kandinsky is a household name and we keep it.
Wow. Nice story and a happy ending somehow as well.
We pay for our pride, so.
Excellent. Well, that was a nice ending. So thanks a lot, Marco, for your time. Thanks everyone who joined us on the chat or just watching. We hope you liked it and it will stay on YouTube. So you will be able to watch it again.
Awesome.
Thanks a lot. To the next one.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.